risks on the supply chain. So Dr. Mustafa is a physician by training, but has decided to focus on the issues of governance within healthcare, and has worked in several countries and for several international organizations on this issue. Mustafa, I'm going to hold you to time, so over to you.
Just unmute. Okay, I'm really happy to be here. I would just try to put something, and just like I like this quote to start this thing, which is this chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And we look into a holistic approach into the value chain. The one important factor to think of, okay, the opportunity is there, the money is there, the investor interest is there, the market is there. Africa has a great potential. I think all these things are not in question. Healthcare is seen as what they usually call as a defensive industry, which is an industry that takes, like in times of crisis, you look into the industry that had a relatively low risk. Because you'll always have this market and you'll always have things running out. Then what is the problem? To my opinion, that governance is a key part and key piece that actually needed to connect the pieces of the puzzle together. Why? Because governance creates so many risks that actually are seen by the investors. Healthcare needs relatively large type of investments, especially if we're looking into manufacture, with a time span that is relatively also long. So if we have governance related risks, that usually relates to short-term investments with very high return and very high risks. So if we don't work together on this formula, and this is, I find it a very good point of time. Why? Because actually everyone is interested to tackle this. Government is interested, investors are interested, the private sector is interested, and the population is interested. And this is the opportunity where we can all work together in that. If we keep things simple, we can just look at the supply chain. Let's just keep it simple, that we have drugs and pharmaceuticals that would reach the end beneficiaries. However, through this value chain, it starts with either we are importing ingredient APIs or actually importing drugs. They pass through some sort of ports and customs. They end up in maybe local production or directly to storage and distribution. Then they enter into the service delivery and in some sort of dispensing to reach the end beneficiary. So, like that, it could be through a hospital or it could be through a pharmacy, but the end in that. Some place somewhere a person buys these, someone pays for this, and someone prescribes this. And then there is a full regulatory oversight with licensing, registration, permits, inspection, and accreditation. So if let's try and make it simple, that each of these key 14 functions that have risks entail so many decision makers, actors within the supply chain that are actually entrusted with authorities in order to take decisions and achieve outcomes. Any function, entity, regulatory authority, be it a hospital, be it a pharmacy, be it a procurement, a program, a procedure, all of them, we have like governing boards, we have people taking decisions, and these decisions could fail. They could fail simply because misjudgment and error. They could fail because of negligence. They could fail because of inaptitude and poor skills. They could fail because of poor resources. They could fail because of lack of information, or they could fail because of intentional misconduct, which is the term I like to use for corruption, fraud, counterfeit. And if we don't start looking into these decision makers, actors, landscape, break it down into these points, try to look into the risks around them and try to tackle these risks, it will always be a high risk, and it will be always creating nervousness and agitation, as Jim was just saying, for investors. So the key message I would say that we need to focus in 360 degrees accountability around these points. We need to look into ownership functions, how strong they are. We need to have vigilant, independent boards of trustees, and all these ones need really work from us. We need to look into management controls. We really need to work on strengthening internal audit functions in the healthcare sector. And then, of course, we need to look into other affiliate assurance bodies like audit offices and interact with the anti-corruption agencies and other actors in the country and the government level in order to strengthen the accountability around these points. Then we have, of course, the green part, which is very important, is the independent regulators part. And then we have to work also on other stakeholders and strengthen the representation either of the civil society, patients, or industry groups. We really need to look and unpack this into something, turn it into strong capacities, and then help people navigate this complexity and make it simple again. Just try to unpack it. But if we try to ignore the governance-related risks, we'll keep on doing into this vicious circle that the opportunity is there, the money is there, but the formula is missing a very strong piece of puzzle. And thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mustafa. That was really helpful. And so if you have questions for Dr. Mustafa, please put it in the audience. Before Dr. Mulak talks, I was just going to ask Olaf a question. Olaf, are you ready for the question? I mean, there was a question here for you on how IFC works closely with Africa CDC, the AU continental bodies. Are you working with them to convey, are you working with governments at all on the issues of sort of vaccine demand and order? And you mentioned sort of creating the market. So the question for you here from Dr. Merritt about how closely IFC is working with the African regional entities.
Can you hear me, Ekbe?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Good. Yeah, so no, this is very much key, and in fact we are collaborating with the multiple entities that are involved in that discussion, because you have those two that you just mentioned, African Union, CDC, but there's also, let's say, stakeholders like Gavi, COVAX. I mean, we really need to get everybody around the table and think through, because, and that's perhaps a point I didn't make earlier. If we think about creating local manufacturing in Africa, we need to, and that's where we, of course, having a financial hat on, need to try to build business cases which have long-term sustainability. And of course, COVID is offering an opportunity, I feel, to say, yes, let's all work together to build this capacity. But of course, that capacity needs to be well beyond COVID. Therefore, most of the vaccine discussions we are involved in are multi-vaccine discussions. And there needs to be clear understanding that if really there is production in Africa, that there is offtake on the other side. So the whole offtake discussion, which requires coordination with the different entities that were mentioned, will be of critical nature to ensure that these have long-term viable prospects. And I think that's really what requires, and why we are trying to collaborate a lot with the different entities around that discussion. How can you ensure that, given that a lot of money will be invested into this, and you do not want to create white elephants on the continent? You do want to have very clear business plans. How can each kind of manufacturing entity play into a broader regional prospect? And I think one other piece which is perhaps interesting in that context is to say, who can play what role in the value chain? Not everybody needs to become a drug manufacturer. And, some can focus more on APIs, other can focus on other ingredients or parts within that value chain you mentioned earlier, right? I mean, the syringes in Nigeria, very good example. I mean, we do need that, right? And it's not only drug substance. So therefore, I think that is of critical nature as we think about that. And Egbe, I don't know if there's any other question for IFC. I'm happy to take it, but I have then a commitment at 4 o'clock, so in 2 minutes, which I need to jump off to. But happy to respond in case you had any other question.
very much. The only other question, which I think will also be elaborated, was the issue of capacity. And I know that Dr. Miller is looking after you as a manufacturing expert. But, you know, with all those funds going in, what's happening in issues of capacity and skills for Africans and African countries?
Yeah.
How's that?
Thank you so much. I mean, I will try to give a quick shot. I mean, you could have a webinar just on that, actually. But basically, capacity building is of critical importance. And I think there are multiple kind of aspects how you can build that out. Of course, you can look at what institutions are here on the ground and strengthen these. I think you want to build stronger linkages to the industry itself so that the right curriculums get basically taught. And I think the third piece that comes to mind is building the industrial linkages to players who have long track record in the industry and who are interested in coming to Africa and building local capacity. And that will allow for training on the ground. And that's what we see with the multiple projects I'm very excited about. I mean, many of you have seen the announcements of BioNTech coming from Germany to multiple countries in Africa, and that will come alongside skill building. And that is really what is very exciting about those projects. With that, I will hand back to you and let you continue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's really wonderful. Okay. And okay, Dr. Miller, over to you.
Yes, greetings to everyone, and thank you, Ade, for this opportunity to be here to speak about this very, very important subject. I must say that there's a lot of excitement surrounding these discussions, improving pharmaceutical manufacturing on the continent. And what we are talking about today goes a long way in ensuring that we achieve the main objective of having high quality products on the market to accessible by everyone on the continent as far as the fight against all kinds of diseases on the continent. I want to focus on just something from my end at the center of it all. What we want to have is to ensure that consistently we are having high quality and safe products available on the market. We can have improvement in pharmaceutical manufacturing as is being advocated for. But what we are looking for is avoiding substandard products on the market or falsified medicines on the market as well. And we need then to have a holistic approach to ensure that that is attained. So we have to have a look at different sector players here, a number of institutions that are going to be playing a key role. So I've highlighted just 3 of them. It's not comprehensive, but I know that some of the things have already been talked about and already issues of training have been touched on. But one thing to start with is the issue of strengthening of national medicines regulatory authorities. We need to ensure that these regulatory authorities attain a certain maturity level that will inspire the confidence of all the key sector players that as far as medicines or vaccines regulation is concerned, we have the systems in place that are going to ensure that whatever product is on the market is of high quality and safe. And so we see that as far as regulatory authorities are concerned, a key aspect, one of them is the capacity of the quality control laboratories. We do know that on the continent, not many regulatory authorities have got up to the required standard quality control laboratories. So what that means is that